Welcome to another deep dive, everyone. Today, we're going to be tackling the brain.
The brain.
The human brain.
It's incredible.
It's a fascinating world, right? Neuroscience. I'm really excited about this one.
Me too.
We've got some really cool sources to dive into.
Right.
We've got Georgetown University and King's College London. Both of them have some incredible material on neuroscience, and we're going to be extracting the good stuff from them.
Yeah.
So get ready to have your minds blown, because we're about to explore how this 3-pound organ
Yes.
controls literally everything, like every thought, every feeling, every memory, even the fact that we're having this conversation right now.
It's kind of wild when you think about it.
It's wild.
Yeah. I think it's really cool too because it's not just biology.
Right.
Neuroscience is this incredible intersection of so many different fields. I mean, you got biology,
Good.
obviously, but you got psychology, philosophy, computer science, linguistics even. All of these different fields are coming together to try to figure out how this organ works.
And that's, I think, what makes it so complex and so interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay, so before we go too deep,
Yeah.
I did want to touch on this because both of our sources mentioned it. They define neuroscience, but they also talk about neurobiology. Is there a difference, or are those interchangeable?
It's a good question, and it's actually a subtle difference.
Yeah.
So neurobiology, you can think of it as like a subset of neuroscience. Neurobiology is specifically about the biology of the nervous system. So the cells, the molecules, all those little details.
Okay.
Whereas neuroscience is the bigger picture. It encompasses everything.
Yeah.
All the research, all the different approaches, anything that has to do with the nervous system.
So neuroscience is the whole universe.
Yeah.
And neurobiology is one of the planets in it.
Exactly.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And this universe has a lot of different galaxies to explore.
Galaxies. I like that analogy. So Georgetown, they actually had this really awesome list of all these different branches of neuroscience.
Yeah.
And each branch is focused on a different aspect of the nervous system.
Ooh, okay. So this is going to be a wild ride.
It is.
Let's dive into some of these branches.
Okay.
So, the first one that popped up for me was affective neuroscience.
Okay.
Now, I don't know a lot about this, but I'm assuming this has to do with emotions.
You got it. Affective neuroscience is all about how our brains create feelings.
Really? So, when we're happy, we're sad, or angry, there are specific parts of our brain that are responsible for those feelings.
That's exactly what they're trying to figure out. How do our neurons, which are these tiny little brain cells, how do they create our emotional experiences?
Huh. Okay. So, if you could pinpoint the exact neurons or the neural circuits that are responsible for joy versus fear,
Yeah.
you could do a lot with that.
Absolutely. Think about the potential for treating emotional disorders.
Right.
If we could understand the root of those problems at a neural level.
Oh man, that is mind-blowing. It's like you're decoding the emotional language of the brain.
Kind of, yeah.
Wow.
It's super cool.
Okay, so we've got emotions.
Mm-hmm.
What about behavioral neuroscience? This one sounds like it's getting into the way we act.
Yeah. So behavioral neuroscience is all about exploring the biological basis for our behavior.
So does this mean our brains are basically controlling everything we do, we're just puppets?
Not exactly puppets.
Okay.
But the brain definitely plays a big role in shaping our actions.
Okay.
So this branch is looking at things like why we make certain decisions, what motivates us, how we form habits, even things like addiction.
All right.
They're trying to understand how all of that is rooted in the brain.
So if you could understand those biological factors, then you could develop better treatments and therapies.
Exactly. It's not just about willpower.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the brain's role in these behaviors.
This is fascinating. Okay, so we've covered emotions. We've covered behavior. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What about cellular neuroscience? This one sounds like it's zooming in.
It is. This is where we get to the stars of the show, the neurons themselves.
The neurons.
Yeah, so cellular neuroscience is all about understanding the structure and function of these individual brain cells, how they communicate with each other, how they form networks.
So it's almost like you're trying to map out the wiring of the brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to see all those billions of connections.
Oh, wow.
And how they're firing.
That's incredible.
It is.
Okay, I actually read something really interesting about this.
Oh, yeah.
On the King's College London website, they're doing research on how different types of brain cells are formed
Oh, wow.
and how they know where to go, like during development.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, how do all these neurons know where to go?
Yeah, it's like an incredibly complex dance.
Right.
They have to migrate to the right places, make the right connections. It's incredible.
It's like a giant orchestra.
And every musician needs to know exactly where to sit
Oh,
and what instrument to play.
it's a great analogy.
Okay, so we've got emotions,
Yeah.
behavior, the cells themselves. What about clinical neuroscience?
Clinical neuroscience. This is where the research meets the real world.
Okay.
So this branch focuses on diagnosis, treatment, and hopefully prevention of neurological disorders.
So this is the one that's like actually helping people.
Absolutely. They're dealing with things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis,
Right.
all these conditions that affect the brain and the nervous system.
So it's like taking all this knowledge,
Yeah.
all this research, and trying to apply it.
Exactly. To develop treatments to improve people's lives.
And that's going to be a pretty important field.
It is huge.
Yeah.
So many people are affected by these disorders.
Right.
So the work they're doing is incredibly valuable.
All right. So we've gone from like the cells to like the bigger picture of like how to treat diseases. Now let's get into the mind.
The mind.
Cognitive neuroscience. This one sounds...
It is deep.
So what is cognitive neuroscience all about?
So this branch tackles the higher level mental processes. Things like thinking, learning, memory, decision-making language.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like how do our brains actually create thoughts and language? Is it like magic or is there a scientific explanation?
I mean, it feels like magic sometimes.
Yeah.
But cognitive neuroscience is all about demystifying these processes.
Okay.
They use techniques like brain imaging to actually see what's happening in the brain
Wow.
when someone is thinking or speaking or remembering.
So it's like you're looking through a window into the mind.
Exactly.
That is so cool. Okay. I could talk about this one for
Me
hours,
too.
but we've got a lot more branches to cover.
We do.
So let's move on to computational neuroscience.
Okay.
Now this one sounds like, are we building brains out of computers now?
Not exactly building physical brains,
Okay.
but you're on the right track. So computational neuroscience uses mathematical models and computer simulations to understand how the brain processes information.
So like you're creating a virtual brain
Yeah.
to test out theories and stuff.
Exactly. It's like a powerful tool for understanding how these neural networks work.
And that actually ties into the research that King's College London is doing, right? They're using computational models to study like learning and memory and stuff.
Yeah, they are. It's amazing work. Like they're using these simulations to make some incredible discoveries.
That is so cool. Okay, so we've covered emotions, we've covered behavior, we've talked about cells, we've even gotten into like the realm of the mind with cognitive neuroscience. Now let's get a little philosophical here.
Okay.
Cultural neuroscience?
Ooh, cultural neuroscience.
What is this one all about?
So this branch explores the fascinating interplay between our brains and our culture.
So like how our upbringing or our society influences the way we think.
Exactly. Like how do our cultural experiences actually change the physical structure of our brains?
Really?
Yeah. And on the flip side, how do our brains shape the culture we create?
Wow.
It's a two-way street.
So it's not just nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
It's nature and nurture.
Yeah. They're constantly influencing each other.
And our brains are like caught in the middle.
Right in the middle.
This is blowing my mind.
I know. It's a really cool field.
Okay, so we've got like this connection between the brain and culture. What about developmental neuroscience?
Okay.
Now, I'm assuming this has to do with how our brains develop.
It does. So developmental neuroscience, they study how our brains grow and change over time, from the moment we're born to old age.
So like they're looking at how neurons form connections,
Yeah.
how different brain regions specialize, and how our experiences shape the wiring of our brain.
Exactly. It's like charting the entire journey of the brain.
So our brains are basically constantly evolving,
They are.
even as adults.
Yeah, it's not like we reach a certain point
Yeah.
and our brains just stop changing.
Yeah.
They're constantly adapting and rewiring themselves based on what we learn and experience.
Man, our brains are way more dynamic than I thought.
They are.
Okay. So we've gone from the big picture of development to the very small picture of cellular neuroscience. Is there anything smaller than that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We can go even smaller.
okay.
Molecular neuroscience.
Molecular neuroscience. This sounds like we're getting down to the atoms and stuff.
Almost. So molecular neuroscience is all about studying the molecules that are essential for the nervous system to function.
Okay.
So we're talking about things like neurotransmitters. Those are the chemical messengers that allow neurons to communicate with each other.
Right.
And we're also talking about the genes
Okay.
that control brain development.
So it's like you're trying to crack the code
Yeah,
of the brain
it is like cracking the code.
at the most basic level.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And understanding this code is crucial for developing new treatments for neurological disorders.
That's incredible. Okay, so we've gone from the big picture to the small picture to the even smaller picture.
We have.
I think my brain is about to explode.
All right.
But we've got to keep going.
We do.
That's next.
Okay. Get ready for this one.
Oh, no.
Neuroengineering.
Neuroengineering. What does that even mean?
So this branch is all about using engineering principles to understand, repair, and even enhance neural systems.
Okay, hold on. Repair and enhance.
Yeah.
Like we're talking cyborg brains here.
Not quite cyborgs yet,
Okay.
but it's getting closer.
Wow.
So think about things like brain-computer interfaces,
Whoa.
where you can actually connect the brain to a computer.
Like really?
Yeah. And prosthetic limbs.
Okay.
That can be controlled by thought.
Science fiction is becoming reality.
It is.
And this has huge implications for people with
It's
disabilities.
huge. Like you could restore lost function.
Right.
Improve quality of life. It's incredible.
Okay, I'm officially mind blown.
I know, right?
Neuroengineering. That's a whole other deep dive.
It is.
We got to do that one sometime.
We should.
Okay, so we've talked about building things. What about seeing things?
Seeing things.
Like neuroimaging.
Ah, yes. Neuroimaging.
This is where we get to take pictures of the brain.
Exactly.
Right.
So neuroimaging uses all sorts of cool techniques
Okay.
to visualize the structure and function of the brain.
So like MRIs, PET
Yes.
scans.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of those.
Yeah.
Each one giving us a slightly different window into the brain.
So we're not just talking about static images. We're
Yeah.
talking about seeing the brain
Yeah.
in action.
In action. Like seeing which areas light up when someone is doing a task.
Right.
Or seeing how the brain is affected by disease.
And this has got to be like crucial for diagnosing and treating neurological disorders.
It is huge for diagnosis and treatment. And also for research.
Yeah.
To understand how the healthy brain works and how things go wrong.
It's amazing how far technology has come that we can like see inside this mysterious organ.
It really is.
Okay, so we can build things, we can see things. What about like organizing things?
Organizing things. I like that.
Neuroinformatics. This one sounds a little abstract.
It is a little bit abstract.
Okay.
But it's super important.
Okay.
So you see, neuroscience generates a ton of data, like a massive amount of information.
Yeah, that.
So neuroinformatics is all about organizing, analyzing, and sharing all that data.
So it's like the internet of the brain.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
It's like building this giant database of brain information.
So that researchers can collaborate and share their findings and stuff.
Exactly. It's about creating the tools and infrastructure to accelerate neuroscience research.
That's pretty cool.
It is. It's kind of behind the scenes, but it's super important.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready for another one?
Hit me.
Neurolinguistics.
Neurolinguistics. This one sounds like it has to do with language.
It does. It's all about the relationship between the brain and language.
Okay, so how do they even study that?
So they use a variety of methods, like analyzing brain activity while someone is speaking or reading.
Right.
They're trying to understand how our brains acquire, comprehend, and produce language.
Wow.
It's pretty complex.
So they're like trying to figure out
Yeah.
how we turn thoughts into
Yeah.
words
And words into
or
thought.
vice versa.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's like deciphering the neural code of language.
And that could have implications for like education,
Absolutely.
communication.
Understanding language disorders.
Wow. This is a huge field. Okay. What about neurophysiology?
Neurophysiology. So this one focuses on the electrical and chemical processes that are happening in the brain.
So like the actual signals
The signals.
that neurons are sending to each other.
Exactly. It's like eavesdropping on the brain's communication system.
And by understanding those signals, you can understand how the brain processes information and controls our body.
Exactly.
And that's got to be important for like treating neurological disorders.
It is. If there's a disruption in those signals,
Yeah.
it can cause all sorts of problems.
Wow.
Okay. Ready for a blast from the past.
A blast from the past.
Yeah. Paleoneurology.
Paleoneurology. This sounds like we're going way back in time.
We are.
Okay.
So paleoneurology studies the evolution of the brain
Okay.
by examining fossilized skulls and brain casts.
So, like, dinosaur brains.
Well, not quite dinosaurs,
Okay.
but definitely ancient human ancestors.
Wow. So they're like brain detectives.
Yeah.
Trying to piece together clues about how the brain has evolved over millions of years.
Exactly. They're looking at how the brain has changed and what those changes might tell us about our cognitive abilities.
So they're trying to figure out, like, what makes the human brain unique?
Yeah, like how did we get to this point? What were the key steps in our brain
Yeah.
evolution?
This is incredible. It's like adding a whole historical dimension to neuroscience.
It is. It gives us a whole new perspective on how we got to where we are today.
Wow. Okay. So we've covered emotions, behavior, cells, the mind, culture, development, evolution. I feel like we've covered everything.
Almost. There's one more.
One more.
I saved the best for last.
Okay.
Social neuroscience.
Social neuroscience. What's that all about?
So this one is all about how our brains allow us to be social creatures.
Okay.
So it's looking at things like how we connect with others,
Yeah.
how we form relationships, how we navigate social situations.
Oh, wow. So things like empathy
Yeah.
and cooperation and even conflict.
All of that has a basis in the brain.
So they're trying to figure out
Yeah.
like the neural mechanisms
Yeah.
that make us social.
Exactly. And this field is super relevant
Yeah.
because we live in an increasingly social world.
Right. Okay, before we move on,
Yeah.
I actually wanted to touch on one more branch
Yeah.
that I think kind of takes a step back and looks at the bigger picture,
Okay.
systems neuroscience.
Systems neuroscience.
Oh, yes.
A great one to bring up.
So what is that all about?
So systems neuroscience is all about understanding how different parts of the brain work together
Okay.
to perform complex functions.
So like, it's not just looking at individual neurons
No,
or individual brain regions.
it's looking at the whole system.
Yeah.
How all the different parts interact and communicate.
So it's like looking at the brain as a network
As a network, exactly.
of interconnected systems.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense.
And this is important because a lot of brain functions
Yeah.
involve multiple brain regions working together.
So you can't just study one part in isolation.
No, you can't. You have to look at the whole system.
Wow. Okay. I think we've officially covered all the branches of neuroscience now.
I think so.
My brain is officially full.
I know. Mine too.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. It's amazing. Okay, so we've defined neuroscience. We've talked about the difference between neuroscience and neurobiology. We've explored all these different branches.
Yeah.
Now let's get into, like, the really big questions.
Okay, I like big questions.
Like, why should we even care about studying the brain?
Well, that's a good one.
Like, what's the point of all this research?
Right. What's the impact?
Yeah, the impact. What is it?
Well, there's a lot of impact.
Okay, good.
We're talking about understanding ourselves at the most fundamental level.
Right.
We're talking about developing new treatments for diseases.
Mhm.
We're talking about improving our cognitive abilities.
Yeah.
Like the potential impact of neuroscience is huge.
I'm ready to dive into that.
Let's do it.
But I think that's a topic for another part of this deep dive.
I think you're right.
My brain needs a break.
Mine too. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We'll be back.
We'll be back with part 2 of this deep dive into the amazing world of neuroscience.
Stay tuned. It's amazing where like all these different branches,
Yeah.
all these different perspectives.
I'm still reeling from all those branches.
I know. It's a lot to take in.
Like every single one is like a whole field of study,
exactly.
a whole universe in itself.
It is, and we're only just scratching the surface.
Right. And we haven't even gotten into like
Yeah.
the really cool stuff, like
The impact.
the impact.
Yeah.
Like why does this even matter?
Well, it matters a lot actually.
Okay, I was hoping you'd say that.
Like think about it. This is the brain.
Yeah.
This is the control center for literally everything we do.
Yeah.
Every thought, every feeling, every memory, every action.
Even just like breathing.
Breathing, walking, talking, eating, sleeping,
Falling in love.
falling in love, all of it.
All of it comes from the brain.
Yeah, and we're still just trying to figure out how it all works.
Right.
It's the most complex organ in the human body.
It is. I mean,
86 billion neurons.
86 billion. Can you even imagine that?
That's more than stars in the Milky Way. It is It's mind-boggling.
And all those neurons talking to each other.
Yeah.
Sending signals.
Forming connections.
It's wild.
It's a giant,
Yeah.
like a giant
superhighway
Yes.
of information.
Of information in our heads.
Yeah, and it's constantly changing.
Right. Like it's not just static.
No, it's dynamic.
Dynamic.
That's
It's
plastic.
plastic. What does that even mean?
So plasticity means that the brain can change and adapt.
Okay.
Like it can rewire itself.
So like when we learn new things,
Yeah.
our brain is actually
Changing.
physically changing.
Yeah, forming new connections, strengthening existing ones.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Okay, so we've established that the brain is complex,
Very complex.
fascinating,
Absolute.
and always changing.
Yes,
But why should we care?
that's the big question, right?
Yeah, like what's the point of all this research?
Well, I think both Georgetown and King's College London made it very clear.
That there are real-world applications to this research.
Okay, good, because I was starting to worry.
No need to worry.
Okay.
Neuroscience is having a huge impact.
Okay, I'm ready. Tell me everything.
Okay, so first of all, think about diseases.
Okay.
Diseases of the brain and the nervous system.
Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, stroke.
Yeah, these are debilitating conditions
Devastating.
that affect millions of people
Millions.
worldwide, and neuroscience is leading the way
Okay.
in developing new treatments for these diseases.
So like cures.
Well, maybe not cures overnight,
Okay.
but definitely new therapies, new medications, new interventions.
To like slow down the progression.
Yeah, to slow down the progression, to manage the symptoms, to improve quality's life.
And hopefully one day
Yeah.
to actually cure these diseases.
That's the ultimate goal.
Wow. Okay, so that's one big impact.
That's a huge one.
What else? Well, what about mental health?
Okay, yeah, mental health is huge,
It's just as important as physical health.
and it's often overlooked.
It is, and neuroscience is helping us to understand mental health conditions.
Right.
Like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder.
So all these conditions
Yeah.
that affect so many people
Millions of people.
are actually rooted in the brain.
Yeah, they have a biological basis.
So it's not just like a weakness
Right.
or a character flaw.
No, it's a result of
Yeah.
complex brain processes.
And if we can understand those processes,
Yeah,
then we can develop better treatment.
exactly. Better treatments, better therapies, better ways to help people.
That's amazing. Okay, so neuroscience is helping us
Yeah.
to treat diseases of the brain and the nervous system, and it's helping us to understand and address mental health conditions.
Yeah.
What else?
What about our cognitive abilities?
Okay, yeah.
Like our ability to learn and remember.
to think, to make decisions.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
So neuroscience is revealing how those processes work
Okay.
in the brain.
So like how we learn new things.
Yeah. How we form memories, how we make decisions, how we solve problems.
So potentially we could use this knowledge
Yeah.
to like become better learners,
Absolutely.
to improve our memory,
Yeah.
to make better decisions.
To enhance our cognitive abilities.
So we could all be like super learners.
Well, maybe not super learners overnight,
Okay.
but definitely more effective learners.
I like the sound of that.
It's pretty cool, right?
It is very cool. Okay, so neuroscience is helping us to treat diseases, to understand mental health, and to enhance our cognitive abilities.
Yeah, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, so there's more.
Oh yeah, there's so much more.
Okay, well, I'm going to need you to elaborate on that.
I will.
Yeah.
But before we do,
Yeah?
I wanted to highlight some of the amazing research that's being done at King's College London.
Okay, yes. King's College London.
Their website is a goldmine of information about their neuroscience research.
It is. I was like
Would say,
geeking out over it.
it's really cool.
What were some of the things that you found most interesting?
One thing that really stood out to me was
Yeah.
their focus on the interplay between genes and the environment.
Oh, yeah. That's fascinating.
It is, because it's not just about our genes.
Right.
It's also about our experiences.
So like nature versus nurture.
Yeah, it's that age-old debate. But King's College London is really digging into
Yeah.
how those two factors interact.
So like our genes might predispose us to certain things,
Yeah.
but our environment can actually change
Yeah.
the way those genes are expressed.
Exactly. It's like our experiences can actually turn genes on or off.
Wow. So
It's really complex.
yeah,
But they're doing some amazing work in that area.
that is really cool. Okay, so genes and environment.
Yeah.
What else?
They're also doing cutting-edge research in neuroimaging.
Neuroimaging.
Yeah, they have these incredible facilities
Okay.
where they can visualize the brain in amazing detail. Like from the level of individual synapses.
Synapses.
Yeah, those tiny connections between neurons.
Wow.
To whole brain activity.
So it's like
Yeah.
they have a high-definition map of the brain.
Basically, yeah, they can see all these intricate pathways and connections.
And that must be so helpful for understanding
Oh, yeah.
how the brain works.
It is. It's giving them so much insight into brain function and dysfunction.
That's incredible. It's like we're finally able to see
Yeah.
what's going on inside this mysterious organ.
That's amazing. It's like a whole new world has opened up.
And it's all thanks to neuroscience.
Yeah, neuroscience is really pushing the boundaries of what we know about ourselves.
And I feel like we're just getting started.
We are.
There's so much more to discover.
So much more.
But I think my brain needs a little break.
I think mine does too.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we've talked about the complexity of the brain, the different branches of neuroscience, the impact of this research.
We even got a glimpse into the cutting-edge work being done at King's College London.
It's been a whirlwind tour.
It has, but I'm excited to see what we uncover in the next part of this deep dive.
Me too, stay tuned.
Wow, I feel like we've been on this incredible journey through the brain.
We have. It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot, but it's been so fascinating.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I always get excited talking about neuroscience.
Me too. It's just mind-blowing.
It is.
Okay, so before we wrap things up, I kind of want to summarize what we've learned.
Okay, yeah, good idea. Let's
Yeah.
recap.
Okay, so we started by defining neuroscience. Like, what is it? What does it encompass?
Right. And we talked about how it's not just biology, it's this interdisciplinary field.
Yeah, drawing from all these different areas, like psychology, philosophy, computer science, even linguistics.
Yeah. All these different perspectives coming together
Yeah.
to try to understand the brain.
And then we dove into all those different branches of neuroscience, each one focusing on a different aspect.
Right. We talked about affective neuroscience, behavioral neuroscience, cellular neuroscience.
Clinical neuroscience,
Nice.
cognitive neuroscience. I mean, the list goes on and on.
It does. And it's amazing to see how all these different branches are interconnected.
Yeah, like they all contribute to the bigger picture of understanding the brain.
Absolutely.
And we talked about the impact, like why does this research even matter?
And we saw how it has a real impact on people's lives.
Yeah, like developing new treatments for diseases.
Yeah, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's,
Understanding and addressing mental health conditions.
like depression and anxiety.
Even enhancing our cognitive abilities.
Right, like learning and memory.
It's incredible to think about all the potential benefits of this research.
It is. And we're only just getting started.
Right? Like there's still so much we don't know about the brain.
Absolutely. But that's what makes it so exciting.
It does. Okay. And
Yeah.
and we can't forget about the amazing work being done at King's College London.
Oh, yeah. They're doing some cutting edge research.
Like their work on the interplay between genes and the environment.
Yeah. How our experiences can actually change the way our genes are expressed.
And their advanced neuroimaging techniques.
Allowing them to see the brain in incredible detail.
It's mind-blowing stuff.
It is.
But I gotta ask, given how complex the brain is, do you think we'll ever fully understand it?
That's the $1 million question.
Right.
It is. I honestly don't know. Like, the brain is the most complex structure in the known universe.
Yeah, 86 billion neurons, all those connections.
It's almost impossible to fathom.
So maybe it's a question that we'll never fully answer.
Maybe. But that doesn't mean we should stop trying.
No, like the journey itself is worth it.
Absolutely. The quest for knowledge, the pursuit of understanding, that's what drives neuroscience.
And who knows, maybe one day we will unlock all the secrets of the brain.
Maybe. But until then, we keep exploring.
We do. Wow. This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
Thanks for joining me on this journey through the fascinating world of neuroscience.
My pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, keep those brains buzzing. And we'll see you next time.